Morning everybody, today we're going to be talking about the workhorse of the shop, and that's going to be your miter saw. Probably going to be one of the most used saws in the shop. I'm going to show you how to make a miter cut, how to make a bevel cut, and how to make a compound, and then various features of the saw. This is Dewalt's newest compound sliding miter saw. You can buy miter saws that don't slide, but this is going to be your 12-inch blade that you can cut your biggest board. I think you can cut up to about a 12-inch board with these. When you first walk up to the saw, usually it's in the lock position. To unlock it, you have this. This is how, if you're transporting the saw, you want it in the lock position. But you got to push down on the saw and then pull out on that pin. So it looks just like that. Alright. The next feature is your trigger up here. So to engage the blade. Okay. You have your retractable blade guard that should retract when you bring it down. Okay. Right here, these new Dewalt saws, they have, it's not really a laser, it's more like a shadow. It works great. It is 100 times better than a laser. But you turn this light on right here, and as you can see, when you bring the blade down, it has a shadow of the blade on your board. So if you have a board in there, alright, you can see that there's a shadow right there, and that just kind of shows you where the blade's going to be. It is actually very accurate. This little pin right here, that is your blade lock, so when you're changing your blade, you'll push in that pin. Okay. This little knob right here locks in the sliding, so if you don't want the saw to slide, you can tighten that down and then you can't slide the saw. Loosen it up, as you can see, you can slide it back and forth. Of the saw is the fence. When you are cutting a board, you want your board all the way against that fence right there. Okay. Now you have the secondary fence, which can be removed if you want to remove it. Ideally, I always remove them, but it's on there just to show you. Some people will cut, larger trim boards like that, flipped on the thickness. And that is why you need that extra fence right there. Be very careful though, if you are beveling a board, or if you have the saw beveled and you flip it over, those fences can be cut. So on a cross cut, take your board, slide it all the way against the fence. Alright, I got my mark lined up right here. As you can see, that shadow, it kind of radiates down so you can see where your cut line is. I'm going to, when you're cutting, make sure that your fingers do not get within about 4 to 5 inches with the blade. If you have a really small board, you can always use a push stick and push it up against the fence. But I like to keep my hands, outside of this little semicircle right here. Okay. Start the saw before you touch it to the wood. Make your cut. The next cut is a miter adjustment. So it has this this lever. Okay, to adjust it, you got to push in right here. Okay, and on your degree marks that are pretty popular, like a 22.5 or a 45, they have these indents right here, and you can lock them in on those indents. To do that, you push in this top lever right here, and then you just slide the saw down, and it'll lock itself into place. So if I want to go to a 22.5, which is right there, I'll just slide it over and it locks itself into place. If you're making a cut that's not too popular, let's say you're making like a 28-degree cut, you'll have to push in that indent button, alright, go to 28 degrees, and then you'll lock down this larger lever here. Okay. This cut's a miter cut. If you are going to use both these levers right here, if you're going to a popular cut, like a 22.5, you just push in that top lever, and you go over to that 22.5. Alright, and then let it fall inside of that indent. If you're doing an odd angle, like let's just say a 28, you go over to 28 and then you'll lock it down. And now you're ready to make your cut. Usually you would have your line, but same thing as a cross cut. Push it against the fence, line it up. So I'm going to give you this angle for a bevel cut. To adjust for a bevel, you have this knob back here. Okay, and you just twist it, and then you can adjust it to whichever way you want to go. Alright. Now, as you can see right here, you have these stops. Okay, and those are for popular angles. So if you want to cut it, I think the first one is for a 22.5. So if you want to cut a 22.5, you can just put it on that stop, tighten down that lever, and you're good to go. Okay. The next one is for like a 30 degree, and then the last one, if you push both those out of the way, is for a 45. If you want to go the opposite direction, see, I have my lever loosened, but I can't go to the right. There is this little yellow knob right here. All right, you gotta flip it over, and then that allows you to go to the right. Okay. When you bring your saw back across, it should lock itself back into place as it did right there. But that is how you adjust for a bevel cut. The bevel, so like I showed you before, you loosen up this knob on the back side, go to your 22.5, I'm doing, okay. Push your board firmly against the fence right here. All right, bring your saw down, line up your cut, start the blade. Alright, the last cut you can make with a miter saw is a compound cut. The compound, as we've talked before, is a miter and a bevel. So let's just say I wanted to do 22.5s. Okay, rotate it over to 22.5 for my miter. And then I'm going to come back here to my bevel. I know you can't see this, but you'll flip it over to a bevel. You'll put it on 22.5. You'll lock it in place, and then you're ready. It is a compound. You will adjust your bevel. I'm going to do 22.5s. Go to 22.5. Then I will adjust my miter to 22.5. Let it fall in that indent. All right. Line your cut up. And then make it.